Chaos on Capitol Hill. Tens of thousands of protesters swarming the building.
Oh, there we go.
Lawmakers forced to stop counting electoral ballots and evacuated.
Without objection, the chair declares the House in recess.
A woman shot and killed as protesters storm into the Capitol building.
It's not protest, it's insurrection. The world's watching.
The president-elect first to publicly address the violence.
This was a fraudulent election, but we can't play into the hands of these people. We have to have peace.
While the president touts unfounded claims of election fraud and tells his supporters to go home.
Live, local, late breaking. This is KOCO 5 News at 10.
Moments of chaos in Washington, D.C. Protesters stormed the Capitol building with lawmakers inside. Right now, the Capitol building is secure. The city has a curfew in effect until 6 a.m. And tonight we have full team coverage here at home and with our Hearst Bureau there in Washington, D.C. Thank you so much for joining us here tonight at 10 o'clock. I'm Jessica Shambach.
I'm Evan Onstadt. An incredibly intense few hours there in D.C. Those members of Congress that hours ago were evacuated and told to take shelter have since returned and in fact are certifying the Electoral College vote as we speak. KOCO's Zach Rael has been in contact with all of Oklahoma's lawmakers in Washington, D.C. today. Joins us here live tonight. And Zach, we know things have changed dramatically over the course of the day.
Evan, Jessica, good evening to you. Yeah, all of this really took off as Oklahoma Senator James Lankford was speaking on the floor of the Senate, objecting to Arizona's Electoral College votes. Well, now at least Lankford is no longer going to be objecting to those votes after what we saw today in Washington.
The good people of Arizona.
Senate will stand in recess until the call of the chair.
From there, chaos at the United States Capitol. Oklahoma lawmakers caught in the middle, sheltering in place as protesters breached the Senate and House chambers. After police finally regained control, Lankford returned to the floor.
Rioters and thugs don't run the Capitol. We're the United States of America.
Lankford was one of the original senators to say they will object to the Electoral College certification in some states that Joe Biden won. He has now withdrawn that objection.
Obviously, the commission that we have asked for is not going to happen at this point. And I understand that. And we're headed towards tonight, towards the certification of Joe Biden to be the president of the United States.
Oklahoma's other lawmakers reacting on Twitter to the violence. Senator Jim Inhofe saying, quote, "This violence and disrespect for our Constitution and our republic is unacceptable and must stop now." Meanwhile, in the House of Representatives, where a similarly chaotic scene took place, Representative Kevin Hern saying, quote, "I support peaceful protests only. The violence must stop." Representative Frank Lucas, sheltering in place in the Capitol complex, saying via Twitter, "I unequivocally condemn the violence and riot scene today." A statement from Representative Tom Cole said, "I am outraged by the lawless protest that unfolded at the United States Capitol today."
Now, as of tonight, we have not yet heard from newly elected Representative Stephanie Bice about what took place in Washington today. Her team does tell us that she is safe, but she has not released a statement like her other colleagues from Oklahoma. And while Lankford's stance has changed, we have yet to hear from the other Oklahoma lawmakers who said they would object to the Electoral College if they still plan to do so. We know the House is voting as we speak. We'll keep you updated. For now, reporting live, Zach Rael, KOCO 5 News. Back to you.
All right, Zach, thanks very much. And one Oklahoma lawmaker found himself closer to danger than any other. I spoke to Congressman Markwayne Mullin live on tonight's 6 o'clock newscast. I asked him what he said to the protesters trying to break down the door of the House chamber and what he says now to people accusing the president and Republicans like him of inciting violence.
There's been a lot of Trump rallies, and you've never seen this kind of reaction from any Trump supporters.
Agitators with evil in their eyes. That's how Oklahoma Congressman Markwayne Mullin described the group of protesters who violently broke into the U.S. Capitol Wednesday. Mullin was seen standing next to Capitol Police with their guns drawn as the invaders tried to break through a barricaded door onto the floor of the House.
I was really trying to talk to everybody. At first, I was saying, "Don't shoot them." It wasn't shots. Don't shoot them. And then I started engaging with the protesters. Said, "Look, guys, you almost just got shot. Is this worth it?"
Markwayne Mullin, Tony Gonzalez, Jason Crow, Pat Fallon, and Troy Nels. Working with the Capitol Police, they ensured the floor of this chamber was never breached.
House Republican leader Kevin McCarthy Thursday night calling Mullins' actions heroic. The congressman says the heroes were Capitol Police, many of whom, he says, were badly injured, including one who he says lost an eye.
They were greatly outnumbered by the protesters at the door. There wasn't very many law enforcement in the chamber with us, and they were willing to hold the line as long as they could to make sure other members could get out.
But who is to blame for the violence? I asked Mullen about allegations that rhetoric from the president and other Republicans like him about unfounded claims of a stolen election were at least partially responsible. Have stoked a fire in a lot of people, and some people don't know how to handle that, and that it leads to something like this. How do you react to criticism like that, and is any of that founded, do you think?
That's ridiculous. That's what it is. It's absolutely ridiculous. We're all responsible for our own actions. But for the last 5 years, they've been coming after President Trump, too. And I'm not saying one is justified for the other, because there is no justification for this action today. We can debate better than this. But that is absolutely ridiculous to say that President Trump or myself or anybody was responsible for today's actions.
Representative Mullen says that he does hope that today's violence does lead to a more civil tone of debate in Washington moving forward.
Oklahoma City's Mayor David Holt tweeting about the protests, saying, quote, "The ongoing attempted overthrow of our government will fail. The republic will survive, but only because of those who are standing for truth. My prayers right now are for their strength, as well as the men and women in uniform protecting them."
And tonight we are hearing from other members of Congress in the wake of today's violent protest.
Sally Kids in Washington, where lawmakers say they will not be stopped from doing their jobs.
Evan, Jessica, it has been an extraordinary day here in Washington, but tonight on Capitol Hill, Congress is back in session, vowing not to be deterred in carrying out the people's business.
Washington under curfew, riot police and the National Guard on watch, hours after pro-Trump rioters stormed the U.S. Capitol and went on a rampage through the halls of Congress.
The violence was quelled. The Capitol is secured.
Lawmakers reconvening to certify Joe Biden's presidential win.
The United States Senate will not be intimidated.
We will be part of a history that shows the world what America is made of.
Earlier, as lawmakers debated a Republican objection to Biden's win in Arizona, Trump supporters broke through barricades, scaled the walls of the Capitol, and smashed their way inside.
January 6th will go down as one of the darkest days in recent American history.
Some lawmakers, Democrat and Republican, placing the blame on President Trump.
What happened here today was an insurrection incited by the President of the United States.
The president should never have spun up certain Americans to believe something that simply cannot be.
While several Trump loyalists reversed course, some still raising objections to the electoral count.
We do need an investigation into irregularities, fraud.
Other Republicans abandoning their call for an investigation into the president's unproven claims of widespread voter fraud.
We're headed towards tonight, towards the certification of Joe Biden to be the president of the United States.
And so tonight we heard lawmakers on both sides of the aisle condemn the violence, and the House and Senate will be working into the night to affirm Joe Biden's electoral win. In Washington, Sally Kidd, KOCO 5 News.
Sally, thank you. Certainly some very intense moments today, but what does the protest and breach of the Capitol mean for the nation globally? KOCO's Abigail Ogle joining us again from home tonight. Abby, you spoke to an expert.
Hi, Jess, that's right. Dr. Larry Reagans, a local national security expert, an intelligence expert, and a professor on the subject, essentially said today was a good day for America's adversaries like Russia or China.
It allows you to make the argument that, see, the United States really isn't this wonderful place. Look at all the discord. Look at how you have people storming the Capitol. What you're able to show is, look, the United States is in absolute disarray. You've had rioting in the streets last spring and summer. I don't think any American can react to this and say, this is really good for the country.
I also asked him if he was surprised to see this happen in one of the most secure places in the world. They were able to storm the Capitol, damage the Capitol, force lawmakers to shelter in place, and injure several members of law enforcement.
Surprise doesn't capture my reaction. I mean, I was horrified. What happened today certainly is something that none of us as Americans have ever experienced before. This is, in fact, truly a black swan.
Guys, back to you.
And tonight, still watching some rain on the radar. And while it is rain tonight, the threat for snow now on the rise this weekend. Who will see that chance? Coming up.
And we have much more to say about the several hours of chaos in the nation's capital today. Coming up in just about 3 minutes, we know that our Abigail Ogle just got off the phone with Senator James Lankford, who changed his vote today after the actions of today. You'll hear that. And right now, a curfew in effect for the city of Washington, D.C. The U.S. Capitol building swept and cleared by law enforcement just a matter of hours ago. We are following any new developments with this. We'll be right back. Several hours of chaos today in Washington, D.C. We've been following this for you all day. Supporters of President Donald Trump gathering to protest the counting of electoral votes by Congress. Lawmakers forced to evacuate and shelter from the Senate floor as many protesters push their way inside. Authorities say at least a dozen people were arrested, a handful of guns taken into custody there at the Capitol.
And many Oklahomans traveled to Washington, D.C. for today's rally,
including a group of about 70 from here in the metro. Both KOCO's Abigail Ogle and Portia Riley spoke to people who were there today, and we continue our team coverage tonight with Abby. You spoke to one woman who is still there in D.C. tonight.
Melissa Schuster of Yukon told me she felt called to go to D.C. to support the president today and hear him speak. She described it at first as a very happy event. She said they were singing together, even praying together.
We're all here because we feel like it's our patriotic duty. Quite surprised at the events that have unfolded today. It became obvious to me that all of a sudden there are others around me that are not here for the same reason I am, that were there to cause trouble. Policemen would come by, they would start screaming at them, very derogatory terms.
Now, I asked her if her group supported the violence that we saw today. She said absolutely not. Melissa, by the way, is back at her hotel tonight. She says everyone from that group here in the metro is safe, and she plans to stay there through Friday. KOCO's Portia Riley continuing our team coverage on this. I want to get to Portia right now. Portia, you also spoke to local women who were there in D.C. today. What did they tell you about their experience?
Abby, very similar response to those that you spoke with, telling me they were there to peacefully protest in support of the president. Upset, things turned violent.
There have been windows broken and a woman got shot and pronounced dead. People are getting very angry.
Like this Oklahoma woman who asked I not name her in fear for family safety, several from the state made the trip to D.C. not expecting things to go south.
It was meant to be all things peaceful.
But they did, and fast, when a violent group of the president's supporters stormed the Capitol.
I immediately wanted to cry. My heart just breaks for anything like that.
Supporters like Carrie Ramosa and her friends saying violence is never the answer.
We're devastated by the events. All of us are. It doesn't matter where our political allegiance lies. All four of us are people that love people, and anything that is violent, and especially where there's loss of life, is wrong, period. No matter what, no matter who.
Many others I spoke with who didn't want to go on camera agreeing. Live in Oklahoma City, Portia Riley, KOCO 5 News. Back to you.
On and off rain showers throughout the day. Still finding that rain on the radar. 40s just aren't really doing it for you. You'll get those 50s back in here for next week, as well as more sun. And you're up to date with the latest First Alert forecast.
Much. Senator James Lankford was in the middle of explaining why he planned to vote against certifying Electoral College votes when protesters broke into the Capitol. He has since changed his mind.
Our Abigail Ogle just spoke to him a few minutes ago. And Abby, an intense day for lawmakers.
Well, guys, I just spoke to him. I asked him, how do you describe what happened today? Is this domestic terrorism? He's calling it anarchy.
It was sad and frustrating to think that anyone would think that to try to prove a point, you should try to smash through and to be able to try to shut down democracy, slow it down, or to make some kind of declaration there. It was very, very sad to be able to watch for our country. This building is very special, not to me, but to our entire country because of what it represents and how important it is to be able to say we solve our problems through dialogue in this building.
I also asked him how today's events changed and shaped his decision to go against certifying the election results for Joe Biden. He said he made that decision after seeing this today and said it would just further the divide that was on display at the United States Capitol. I also asked him about this. How does this happen? The United States Capitol is supposed to be one of the most secure places on the entire planet. He said it simply came down to numbers. Cap police were overwhelmed. He said the invaders just kept coming and coming. He said at first senators were sheltering there in place when the Cap police couldn't hold the line anymore and they were moved to a different location. A lot more coming up from my interview. I just got off the phone with him. That's coming up tomorrow, KOCO 5 News in the morning. Back to you.
All right, Abby, thank you so much. Good work there. Another live look tonight at our nation's capital. You can still see a large presence out there. Lawmakers returning to the Capitol to continue the vote this evening. We'll be back.